Hey traders, this is my recap for this past week ending November the 6th. It was a really great week. It was my second best week ever this year. I believe I had 1 week in July that was better than this week. So for this week I had total profit of $4,993. I did several trades. Let's go ahead and jump into them. So the first one I have is Delta. This is one I have been rolling from a prior week. You can see I actually went ahead and rolled it on Monday because Delta dropped below my strike of 30. But then later in the week, since it recovered, I went ahead and closed it out. So you can see in total, for my initial credit plus the rolls, I closed it out for 30 cents and had an overall profit of 44 cents. With 8 contracts, that was 352. And by rolling and sticking with the trade, I ended up with a profit as opposed to losing $544 if I hadn't rolled it the first time, and I would have lost $344 if I didn't roll it the second time. The next trade I had was SWKS. I was only in this trade for a day. You can see I got a credit of 1.33, closed it for 30 cents the next day, overall profit of $412. Then I got into Uber, sold the 37.5 strike. You can see I got a 52-cent credit. Closed it for 19 cents, overall profit of $330 in 1 day. Then I got into Match. I sold the 113 strike. I got a net credit of 1.23. I was able to close that out for a penny on Friday. So I got an overall profit on that one for $610. Then you can see also on that Wednesday, I did a 0 DTE trade in SPX. I sold the 34.90, 34.95 call credit spread. I got a credit of 1.2 and it expired worthless, so I got to keep the full credit of $600. The next day, I got into an AMD trade. I sold the 82 strike. I collected 86 cents. I did not intend to close this out in the same day, but since AMD rallied later in the day, I was able to go ahead and close it out and capture over 50% of my credit. So I went ahead and did that. Got an overall profit of $315 in just 5 hours. Peloton, this was an earnings play, so I sold the 106 put. I collected 1.01. I had intended to hold this through the earnings announcement, but right before the market closed, Peloton had went up some to where I could close it out and make a quick profit of $240. So I decided to go ahead and close it out. But anyone who held it through earnings should have been able to have captured the max credit for this one. EA was another earnings play. So I sold the 122 strike price. I got a 1.09 credit. The next day, EA dropped after the earnings announcement. So I ended up rolling it 2 weeks out. I rolled it out to the 11/20 expiration down to the 120 strike and got a 1 cent credit. I know some people email me saying they got a much higher credit than I did for this one. And that's just because when I rolled it, the stock was already 5 or 6 points in the money. And so the further in the money when you roll, the less the credit's going to be. But later in the day, EA did come back up to where if you waited to roll, you could have gotten a much better credit than I did on mine. Roku, I sold the 200 strike. Again, this was another earnings play. I got a 2.58 credit. I was able to close it for 1 cent the next day. Overall profit of $514. PayPal, I sold the 202.5 strike. I got a 1.66 credit. I ended up rolling it the next day down to the 197.5 strike and got a 22-cent credit. If I would have waited, the stock actually did recover back up above my strike price where I could have just closed this out. But that's okay. I'll stay with this 1 more week and hopefully can close it out if it's above the 197.5. Also, jumping back up to EA, you can see that if I didn't roll EA, I would have taken a $2,000 loss at the time when I rolled it if I'd have just closed it out. And then on the close Friday, I was down about $1,200 on that particular position. And then for PayPal, you can also see if I hadn't have rolled it, I would have lost $642. But by the end of the day, I was only down about $117 if I were to close it out right now. Chewy, I sold the 66.5 strike. I got a 47-cent credit. I was able to close that out for 1 cent. That gave me a total profit of $460. You can see a lot of these I'm closing out for 1 cent. I've had people ask me, why don't I just let these expire worthless if it's so far out of the money? I closed them out for 2 reasons. One, I want to free up that margin so that I can use that margin to put on another trade for the next week. Also, you never know what can happen later in the day or even after hours. You can still get assigned after hours if the stock moves back below your strike price. So even if it looks like the stock is going to close out of the money, to me it's not worth letting it expire worthless just so I don't have to spend the $10 to close this out. I'd rather spend the $10 and close it out, free up my margin, and also not risk there's any chance that the stock could drop back below my strike price after hours and I get assigned. The next trade I had was AMD. I sold the 80.5 strike. I got a 1.05 credit. Similar to the other AMD trade I did earlier in the week, the stock moved up to where I just went ahead and closed it out because I could capture over 50% of my credit. So I closed it out for 50 cents. and I got an overall profit of $275 and held it for just about 3 hours. And then I did a 0 DTE trade again on that Friday. I sold the 35.30, 35.35 call credit spread. I got a credit of 1.05, and I let it expire worthless, and I got a total profit of $525 on that one. eBay was one that I had rolled from the prior week. So you can see I was actually able to close it out this week. I closed it out for 0.2, and that gave me an overall profit of 0.36 when you consider the initial credit plus the roll minus the cost to close it out. So that gave me an overall profit of $360 in 2 weeks. And you can see if I had not have rolled this, I would have lost $1,000 the week prior if I just closed it out. So by rolling it just the 1 week, I was able to realize a profit instead of taking a loss to begin with. RKT, this is one I've been in for a while. I had that ratio spread on that expired Friday. I was able to make a little bit on the ratio spread. So right now I just have the shares, and my plan is to hold the shares until Tuesday, which is when the earnings comes out. And I'll make a decision then to either close out the stock and go ahead and take my loss, or I may do a covered call, or I may just decide to hold the stock and risk it through earnings to see if it gets back up to my purchase price of 24.5. Like I said, I'll just wait till Tuesday to make that decision. But you can see right now, I could close this out and I would take about $1,000 loss when you consider the loss I would take on the stock plus the profit I made on the ratio spread and the credits I received from selling calls. So I may just end up taking that loss so that I can be out of the stock and move on. So again, for the week, I had the profit of $4,993. You can see right now, if I were to close out my RKT and my PayPal and my EA trade, I would lose about $2,400. But as of now, I will keep rolling the PayPal and EEA trade until they are back above my strike price. As of right now, PayPal is above my strike price and EEA is pretty close. It's just below the 120 strike right now. So that's all I have for this recap. I know a lot of you guys are anxious for me to go ahead and start the live trade alerts. So my website is taking a lot longer than I anticipated, so I'm probably going to have to look at some kind of interim way of doing this as far as processing payments and things like that, since I don't have the website up and ready. So I'm going to send you guys out an email probably in the next day or two with some options for us to go ahead and start doing the live alerts until I can get my website finished. So just be on the lookout for that email. Hope you guys had a good weekend, and hopefully we'll have another great week of trading. Thanks.